And unbelievably, in defiance of the basic tenets of our Constitution, there are some who are even talking about shutting down mosques like the one we are in. And I should say, since Trump's incendiary comments, we have seen in this country, shamefully, an increase in hate speech and attacks on the Muslim American community, including death threats directed at Representative Andre Carson of Indiana. I have talked to Muslims in this country who are frightened. A young Muslim American recently told the New York Times, quote, "I feel the last 2 months have probably been the hardest of my life," end of quote, and I think that person speaks for many thousands. It is time to say enough is enough. It is time to end religious bigotry. It is time to build a nation in which we all stand together, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, all religions, and work to create a nation that benefits all of us. So today I am calling on all of us in public life, including my fellow candidates for president, and all Americans, to stand together and condemn the anti-Muslim rhetoric and hatred that we are hearing, to say no to those who promote this hatred, and to make certain that we create an America that works for all of us, regardless of our religion or the color of our skins. Thank you.
Yeah, we certainly thank you, Senator, for those comments. And we can say this is a place of faith, so we say we pray that the colleagues and other leaders in our government will heed and see that the statements that you are making are upon the very foundation, fabric of what makes us great and what we're built upon. And of course, we have with us good Congressman Keith Ellison, so we will
Pleased to be here.
give him an opportunity to.
Well, Senator Sanders, thank you for your excellent statement. I really think it takes a lot of courage. I know you might not agree with that because this is just who you are. You've always stood up for all people. But in a time when bigots are leading in national polls, it takes a certain amount of courage to stand up and call us to our higher, nobler values, which you have just done. Thank you for that. I also want to just say, Imam Talib Sharif, as a leader of this mosque and a national leader yourself, I like people to be aware that you served our country in the United States Air Force for many years. And my son is active duty Army today. He's a Muslim. He practices Islam and is, inshallah, which means God willing, he's going to join me for the State of the Union. He's from my district. He's an active duty soldier. He's a Muslim. He loves our country. He's a medic. It's his job to try to protect life. And I also want to say that I'm so very gratified to be here with both our Jewish leadership in clergy and Christian leadership in clergy and Muslim leadership in clergy. It's so important that we stand here together, hold hands together, and let the world know that, that this is all of our country. And I would add one thing, if I may. I think as we all heed and wisely heed the call of Senator Sanders, we should also consider what we might do in our local communities. And if you'd indulge me, I remember one year when Ramadan coincided with Yom Kippur on the calendar. Senator Sanders, it happened to overlap about a few years back. And so Imam Makram El-Amin, dear friend of mine and yours, and Rabbi Marsha Zimmerman, who is the leader of the largest synagogue in Minneapolis, said, let's get the congregations together, and we broke fast together. About 80 people said they were coming, but about 120 showed up. And the imam and the rabbi said, this is a good problem. And as you know, when the Muslims and the Jews were getting together to break fast, the Christians said, hey, we want to see this. So we had a multi-faith group, and we went down there. Weren't enough chairs, and there weren't even enough meals. But we were together, and we shared this important time. And I think that's something that people all across America should do, reach out in your local community.
Thank you. Yes, and as our Congressman just mentioned, I did serve in the United States Air Force, 30 years of active duty. Very proud of that, and I'd like to also say that it's a part of my family, my children. We've affected the lives of 6, 2 Air Force, 2 Marines, and one Army. Right now, as we're speaking, they're down. And certainly, after having spent 30 years, that would tell you that I joined in the 70s, and it wasn't popular at that time. It wasn't a lot of accommodations. But again, because of the Constitution protecting the rights, religious liberty and freedom, they began to make accommodations. We were one of the ones that pioneered. We didn't have any chaplains. It was difficult at the time. For Ramadan, 30 days of fasting. And eventually, we had some milestones, and we eventually achieved in 1993 our first Islamic chaplain for all of the armed forces, and he's at the table with us today, Chaplain Rashid.
Thank you, man. First, Senator Sanders, thank you very much for your comments. I think your words resonate not only through this community in terms of the values that we hold, in terms of what our religion espouses to, but also as a representative, as a United States Senator. We are very pleased to hear from you these types of words. One of the concerns, I think, that as a religious leader, and I think I can loosely speak for most of us, if not all of us, that concerns us is not so much of the individual opinions of bigotry, but when those opinions become platforms, when they become a way of thinking throughout communities, then we become extremely concerned about that. The social and the economic concerns that could come about as a result of this type of thinking, of espousing or putting dispersions of negativity upon a group of people, an entire group of people, for the misgivings of a few. We've seen this many times before in history, and you think, as it was said recently, if we haven't learned from it, that we're perhaps doomed, all of us, not just Muslims, but all American citizens are doomed. So I thank you for taking the lead from our government, yourself, Congressman Ellison, Congressman Carson, and many others, being outspoken on our behalf as American citizens. As Imam Sharif said, I served for 22 years in our armed forces. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I make no apologies for my service to this country. And I will go in any mosque, any synagogue, and any church and say exactly the same thing. I don't expect that we will always agree on everything, but I do expect that we will come away with a level of tolerance and respect for the way God created all of us at the end of the day, that we all deserve that. And differences of opinion is what makes this nation great. And so I thank you and Congressman Ellison for being here with us today and representing us so well at the level of government that we so desperately need. Thank you.
So we are just one of many in terms of who have served this country. Really, Muslims have been in this country serving even before it was a country. In fact, the location that you're in right now, Senator, is actual leader, Imam W. Dean Muhammad, picked up the American flag, literally physically picked it up, not just in words, but picked it up and said that if you all won't pick it up, I will. He's called America's Imam. First one to pick it up, and now we know many have engaged and embraced the identity. He said we have an obligation to support, defend, and protect our society. And from that, we also have in this room the commander of the Muslim American Veterans Association that was started a year before we brought him in, was able to get him on as the first chaplain, which we have many, many now. And also in the room, we have Command Sergeant Major, who's just retired. He's a member of the board here. He's in this room right over here as well. Just spent 32 years, longest serving, active for the whole time. Yes. And commanded more than 1/5 of the army. Had the highest position for a Muslim as an enlisted in the armed forces for us, and we are very pleased with him. And he mentioned earlier the religious bigotry, but we have with us right now one of our Christian brothers. We're very close. We thank him. He's been here many times speaking. He is one who is one of the original freedom riders, and we know what that means. He's been through a lot. So, Senator, we want to have him make some comments as well.
Senator, let me thank you as well, add my voice to the many of us gathered here as an appreciation for your tenacity, for your courage to stand up and speak, as it often is referred to, truth to power. The other thing is, I'm just pleased to be in this sacred space at this sacred hour, to share the meaning of diversity and what immigration really is all about. How important it's been for this country in its evolution to become what it has become, always evolving, always trying to get better, always trying to live out the truth. Has evolved from challenges after challenges to bring us to this point. And yet, having witnessed all that we've come through as a nation, we would be at this point in time where bigotry is rearing up its ugly head again. And we cannot afford to, out of ignorance, let our lives be governed by the ignorance espoused. Let me also speak from the context of my pastoral role. This is a city I grew up in. My two classmates sits over there. My high school classmates are Oliver Cromwell and his wife Eutha, who are dear friends of mine. We were there in high school together. We remember the days when I, growing up in Southwest, could not even go to some of the junior high or high schools in the district because all of that preceded the Brown versus Board of Education decision. And I tell the story how in junior high school, we would have these little singing groups. That's how African Americans entertained themselves. And the first tenor in a group I had in junior high school was a fellow named Marvin Gaye. And Marvin talking about being a professor. I thought I'd add that in. But to be here at this table and to watch, I'm always impressed, Representative Ellison, with your work in the Congress. And I thank you for your work. I want to thank those who come out to be a part of this, to sit alongside these two religious leaders. And I say religious, though, understanding we're called to be more spiritual than religious. We are at a juncture in this time period where we must recall that the struggle of America has been about liberation. And if we lose that, then no matter where this election goes, we are really in trouble as a nation. And to demagogue and make one people an issue of this campaign is ludicrous, it's sinful, and it's egregious. And today, we sit here today together saying that let us all walk together in a Negro spiritual and not get weary, for there's a great camp meeting at the promised land.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you.
Senator, we want to give you a chance to weigh in on anything at this point before we go to hear from our rabbi.
I'm doing just fine.
We want to hear from